and get started. Let's talk about why you might want to study intellectual property law. And the easy answer, and probably the most important answer, is that intellectual property rights are critical to our national industrial policy, which is obvious, but we have really moved from the industrial age back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where our economy and success in economic life was based on manufacturing large plants. Think of the auto plants, for example, from the early 20th century throughout the mid 20th century to the information age, right? By and large, what we are doing now in the United States is doing things that manipulate information. And as part of that, intellectual property has become increasingly important, because instead of using big plants and manufacturing facilities and sort of heavy iron to construct things in the U.S., we use our minds. And when we use our minds, what we're creating is intellectual inventions, creativity, innovations, brands, and all of those things are intellectual property law based properties and value. So the value that we get out of this new economy is really inextricably linked to intellectual property law. And so intellectual property is now at the core of the modern U.S. economy. It is central to what we do throughout from the top to the bottom of the economy, big companies, small companies, everybody's doing things related to intellectual property law. And at the same time, there's going on what I describe as the plate tectonics of intellectual property law. Because in the patent context, we've moved from sort of the classic thinking about the ways that patents were used, maybe to cover a chemical compound or a pharmaceutical drug or some particular machine or product that you were producing. Moving to electronics, that move from chemicals or pharmaceuticals to electronics is important because electronics are far more complex and often can have hundreds or even thousands of patentable inventions in a single product. Biology and genetics is a new area of invention, of innovation in the economy, and the patent law is right there, right in the middle of that debate. Can you patent things related to people's genetic material? What are the limits on what you can enforce in terms of biological materials, and how should that work in the modern economy? Computer software, right? This is an area that has undergone unbelievable amounts of innovation over the last 10 years, and yet it fits uncomfortably into the patent system. The patent system, as we'll find out when we go through our module on patent law, really was designed and appears to be thought of in terms of more tangible, more concrete physical inventions, and the software invention, which is really just an idea about how to make things work, fits uncomfortably into that framework and has led to a lot of confusion, and that's what we're going to talk about. And increasingly, we're seeing patenting being done in entirely new areas of the economy, areas where the players, even just a few years ago, really didn't think that patents would apply. And here, business and finance, patents have really come to Wall Street. Now derivatives tend to be patented and are now proprietary owned properties of particular innovators. This brings a lot of changes to the way that the system works. New players are cropping up that have new ideas. They're able to protect these ideas with patents. Old players also are investing in innovation in terms of thinking about the way that business and finance theories might or might not be innovative and therefore patentable. And again, this is putting a lot of pressure on the patent system. And one of the reasons that the intellectual property laws are so much in the news these days is because this technological advancement, this economic set of changes that's going on, is really causing pressure on the system. In the copyright context, you are seeing movies and TV move from very traditional shown in theaters, right? Think of the movie theaters of old. That was very easy to control, right? When you wanted to go see a movie, there wasn't any such thing as TV, of course, but if you wanted to go see a movie, you would go to a theater. You would pay a ticket, you would go in. It was very controlled, very easy to for the movie studios to figure out how to charge, what to charge, who to charge. Pay a ticket, you get in. Then we moved to broadcast television. again, a different kind of business model. The technology led to a different kind of business model. There was an advertising model. A lot of TV was free, and interspersed with advertisements which paid for the content. Instead of going to a movie theater and paying for the content directly, you were paying for it indirectly with your time and attention in advertising. There are hints that the advertising model is breaking down. The advent of TiVo in the late 1990s and continuing to the DVRs of today mean that people now have a lot more ability to skip ads altogether, or at minimum change the time and the place at which they are watching television or any entertainment products, which changes the business models. How are the producers of such works going to respond? And now you're getting to the point where not only do the producers of the works have to respond to new business models and new technologies, but the very identity of the producers themselves are changing. With the advent of services like YouTube, where anybody can now upload video and become essentially their own creator of media products, this is really upending a lot of the way that we think about the consumption of these types of media. And so at the center of this, of course, is copyright. Right? What is the relationship now between YouTube and the copyright law? If I edit a version of a TV show that I like and upload it to YouTube, how have I committed copyright infringement? And if so, what should the remedy? Should I have committed copyright infringement? Should the law speak to that? These are the things that are putting a lot of pressure on the copyright law going forward. Music has seen a revolution, of course, over the last 2 decades. Again, from big bands that you would again pay tickets to go see, to physical media like CDs that you would purchase, and to digital distribution and even wholesale ripping off of music in the Napster era, and now to sort of what we might call the iTunes or even Pandora and Rhapsody era, where people are consuming music in very different ways. It's much more on demand. It's much more individualized. It's not bundled in albums anymore. Tons of pressure being put on the business models, and where there's pressure on business models, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the copyright law, which is at the core of all of these business models. Trademarks. Trademarks, we're also seeing the plate tectonics. Increasingly, we're seeing the emergence of the global mega brand. And by that I mean brands that seem to transcend different products, brands that are products in and of themselves. Major companies like Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Burger King are not only selling their underlying food products or beverage products, but they're also selling themselves, and they're using their logos, they're using their brand awareness in ways that we have never seen. And we're also seeing trademarks becoming products themselves, right? It is becoming popular, for example, to have the LL Bean version of the Ford